I raised it up with 7-3 of diamonds, and this is actually a pretty interesting hand. I c-bet, and he calls, which, he does with any straight draw, any flush draw, um, any 10, any under pair, any ace high. Obviously, some of those hands he'll check raise. I think that he could check call with the king, but he'd more often check raise. When he leads the turn, it's a pretty weird line by him. David does check call lead turns a lot, but this is just a pretty strange board for it. When he check calls and then this turn hits, before he acts, I think he has a made hand almost always. Just because of just all the hand combinations, besides flush draws and ace highs, are now a pair or better. But when he bets, I think it takes a lot of those hands out of his range. I think that he's not betting a 10. He's not betting some jacks. I think he might not bet. I don't think he'd bet Jack 9. He might bet Queen Jack. Probably bet Ace Jack. I think Ace Queen re-raises pre-flop almost always. I think that Queen 9 is possible. But I think that he's going to take a lot of his flush draws and 6-6 or ace-5 type hands here and turn them into bluffs. And I kind of think it's very likely that that's what he's doing. Just because I don't think he has a king. I think he check calls a king about 1/5 as often as he check raises it, maybe even less. And I think that he might even decide to check raise his straights. So I think that when he's value betting, it's mostly ace-jack type hands. So I have a couple options. I picked up a flush draw. I can call or I can raise, I think. I can obviously fold, but I think that it's a good spot to continue with the hand. The problem with raising, and this is something in general that I think people do wrong as far as concerning their range. When people c-bet this board and then get led into, I think they bluff raise far, far too often. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad spot to bluff raise, but they're doing it maybe 10-20% of the time that they have air. And when you raise this turn, there are so few hand combinations of legit made hands that you'd raise. I mean, I don't even know if you'd raise... Like, a lot of people wouldn't be raising aces for value, or maybe even like a hand like King 5 you might not raise for value. Some people might not raise Queen 9 for value, because they're afraid of getting shoved on and then not know what to do. So, there are just not many hand combinations that are raising this turn for value, and if you're bluff raising 10 or 15% of the time, when you have, 95% of your pre-flop range because you c-bet the flop, which doesn't mean anything about your hand, you're just going to show up with bluffs. I mean, off the top of my head, total guess, 6 times as often as you have a made hand, maybe 10, I don't know. That might be overshooting it, but you can do hand combination calcs and figure that out. I think people need to just watch out for that in general. Anyways, I think that it's not a bad play in a vacuum, but you don't want to overdo it. I decided to call here. The other benefit to calling is that I get more information. By floating the turn, I can see how he acts on the river before I decide to make a bluff. If he does have a hand like Ace Queen, Queen 9, King X, he's going to bet most rivers. And I don't think he's going to bet hands like Jack 9 on a lot of rivers, maybe not even Ace Jack. So I get to see when he has a weaker hand. And obviously, I don't think... he could have... Oh, that's the other thing. When he has hearts, I think he's going to value bet this river. So I learn a lot by seeing him check. Obviously, I'm going to bet now. You don't always have to bluff when you float, but this is a perfect opportunity for it. Basically, I thought that he was weak a lot of the time, and I think that I very, very credibly can rep a hand. So I decided to bet very small, and my reasoning for that is, well, I think that he never has a big man hand, or almost never. He has, Ace Jack, Queen Jack occasionally, but I actually don't think they're folding. I don't think that any bluff is profitable against ace jack or queen jack. That's not to say they're never folding, but if I made a large bet, I think he would call it too often to give me a good price on my bluff. Since he never has a 10, really what I'm trying to fold him off of are his hands like 6-6, ace high, and, I guess that's about it, to be honest. Under pairs and ace high. And, some weird spaz play with a 10. So I think that all I need to bet to get him off of those hands is 13,000. And also, I can very credibly rep a whole bunch of hands. I can rep any king. I can rep queen 9, ace jack. I also definitely am very capable, and he knows this, of betting very weak there with a very strong hand.